Okay, it is July 19th, 2023, and we'll talk about Cesar Pelli. Let's read a little bit about him. He died on July 19th, and that's why we talk about him today. Cesar Pelli was an Argentine-American architect who designed some of the world's tallest buildings and other major urban landmarks. Well, I don't know if he designed some of the tallest, but he designed some noticeable buildings. Two of his most notable buildings are the Petronas Towers in Kuala Lumpur and the World Financial Center in New York City. The American Institute of Architects named him one of the 10 most influential living American architects in 1991 and awarded him the AIA, American Institute of Architects, gold medal in 1995. In 2008, the Council on Tall Buildings and Urban Habitat presented him with the Lean S. Beadle Lifetime Achievement Award. I do have to say from the very beginning that he is not one of my favorite architects, but two or three buildings by him perhaps could invite to some contemplation and discussion. This was the man, Cesar Pelli, an able man, and another able architect coming from Argentine. There were others. So, this country gave to the world not only great soccer players, but also important architects. And anyway, maybe I shouldn't become too specific in my comments. I am a little bit hesitant to express great admiration for architects who are too happy or happy-go-lucky, but I guess he had reasons to be. Some drawings by Cesar Pelli. I only show two or three buildings, and then I end the presentation, which is rather short, with a building which I present in detail that was built after he died, built by his office, which continues to be active. I think his architecture is, in a obvious way, at least in part, what we call commercial. It has a level of mundanity which bothers me a little, but in a few cases he did some good works. And the work built after he died by his office that I will present is indeed a work I like. So, I guess he was capable of surprising maybe even himself sometimes. The touches of postmodernism in these, in these drawings. So he showed that he could be an artist too, or an artist, if I am to be a little bit malicious. Petronas Towers in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. This is a famous work by him, and I think he did a good job. Once considered the tallest building in the world from 1998 to 2004, so for 6 long years, the Petronas Towers, designed by Cesar Pelli, stand as a cultural and architectural icon in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Completed in 1998, the Petronas Towers are a reflection and homage to the dominant Islamic culture of Malaysia. And here they are, other twin towers, so very different from the towers that fell in New York City. I think this is a good work. Was a good work by Cesar Pelli. I only hope he didn't do this, but I don't know. Anyway, the towers themselves are they are local towers. They are global or globalists and local or localists. They are local towers because they are infused with some elements of what is called Malaysian culture, but at the same time they belong to the long series of tall buildings that are corporate buildings, serve the corporate culture, And so, in a way, they assert the global capitalism that we are all engulfed in. Malaysia, Cesar Pelli. That bridge there is well chosen. The National Museum of Art, Osaka, Japan, the exaltation which art is supposed to be is rather well represented here. Maybe a little bit too literally, but talking about the superfluousness, well, what we see above here, it's, these are the wings of imagination, but otherwise they cannot be explained or justifiable or justified through, measurable functions. They are the wings of desire, if I am to use the title of a film by Wim Wenders. So sculpturalness can be part of architecture in explicit ways. Osaka, Cesar Pelli. Hello, how are you today? School children in Osaka, turning their heads away from the building by Cesar Pelli and looking towards us. The otherness of art is here for all to see. Maybe not in the most profound way, but effectively though. And the deviant aspects of art are addressed. If you look at these columns, which barely touch the, the slab below, and the obliqueness, which is another reference to, you know, the deviant personality of art and artists. But we need them badly, in my opinion. What would life be without them? Otherwise, the building is, another homage to glass and its demagogy and to steel. So the most interesting part is the most useless. That is what is happening from here upwards. I mean, useless in terms of, concrete, measurable functionalism. Because in terms of emotion or expressing desire or longing, they are not useless. We need them. So if Walter Gropius chose to differentiate between the craftsman and the artist in terms of exaltation, when he said both the artist and the craftsman are rooted in craft, the only difference between the craftsman and the artist is that the artist is a craftsman, it's an exalted craftsman. So what do we see here? We see exactly this, the exaltation of the artist or the exaltation of art. Maybe again, not quite convincingly expressed because it is a little bit too, easy as a gestural architecture, but it does express the spirit of a rebellious art that tries to exalt otherwise, static, if not paralyzed parts. And the diagonals, of course, they help. In general, the diagonal is the trace of rebellion or otherness. And then we have the art on the walls, which does the same thing. Piazza Ge Aulenti, an important architect, and there is this Piazza. She was, I think, from Milan, or she studied in Milan. She did in Paris, Musée d'Orsay, transforming it into a museum, and she did an excellent work. And also she did one in Barcelona, another museum where she had an important role in remaking it, an existing building. I'm not sure I pronounce well her name, Guy Aulenti or Guy Aulenti, but this piazza was designed by Cesar Pelli in Milan. I don't know if he designed just the square or also the tall buildings around it. But what is happening on the ground floor is imaginative enough. There are interesting interventions here, so it's not a predictable work. he built many buildings. I chose to present only these because a lot of his buildings are, in my opinion, not very distinguished. Their predictability and commercialism made me avoid showing other examples. But as I said, a few works by him do deserve attention. And last drawing done by him or by someone in his office. And now I'll show the last work from his office, which I think is a good work and was done after he died. Is this Chengdu Natural History Museum, Pelli, Clark and Partners, and that office in China. As I said, without Cesar Pelli. But his office goes on. But I think this is a good work. And although the architectural language is not entirely novel, but I think it's skillfully done. And I regret now that I didn't place the portrait of the architect in charge. I think a Chinese architect who works for Cesar Pelli or Pelli, Clark and Partners in Connecticut, New York, in Connecticut. The main offices, I imagine they also have offices in China and some other places. So this is a museum of natural history now. That's its function. Yes, natural history museum. And we'll see the reference to the landscape, some impressive mountains in the distance, and there is a dialogue, a formal dialogue between the museum and those mountains. There is geometry, but there is also, freedom, a freedom of expression. And I love the embroidered parts of the facade, which are sensitively done. And I read that actually a mathematician who received the Nobel Prize in mathematics, he contributed to the rigorousness that these embroideries display. The interior has, some drama, but this kind of drama is not new. There are other architects who employ it in similar ways. I like the ornamental fenestrations of the building, which are exquisite. And it's there that they collaborated with the mathematician of high caliber. China, Cesar Pelli. Well, after he died, his office continues. His son is one of the partners there. It is a good work. These I call them embroidered parts, add a sensitivity to the building. Esprit de finesse, to use the words of Boileau, who said that a good work has the spirit of geometry, l'esprit de géométrie, and l'esprit de finesse, the spirit of fineness. And that's exactly what we have here. We have the geometrical composition, and then we have the subtleness or subtlety of these discrete ornamental parts through which actually the museum cooperates or collaborates with the exterior, and light enters the building through them, through these finely embroidered architectural parts. In my opinion, a good work. And yes, capriciousness is still present, but in the absence of capriciousness, it's very difficult to express, joie de vivre, to express longing, to express our artistic concerns. So I don't think we should be ashamed of being, subjective, because it's about subjectivity. Architecture is not only objective. Not everything has to be legitimized or, justified rationally or objectively. You can assert your subjectivity, and thus you increase the architectural qualities of the building you build. It's clear that these are, not rationally arrived at. No, but they give wings to the building through the randomness. Although a lot of study went into, allowing randomness to manifest itself convincingly in this way. And we are going to see studies and models that were done in order to create the building in this way. Maybe Faulkner was right. Always dream, and those embroidered parts of the building seem to suggest to us the same thing. Always dream. They're the wings of desire again, present in this way, architecturally speaking. And the landscaping is, enticing as well. And studies for the, as I call them, the embroidered parts of the building, which allow for a certain porosity in the facades, and light enters through both from outside towards inside and from the inside towards outside. Catalog of shapes, of the used shapes. And as I said, there was a mathematician quite accomplished who apparently, orchestrated these openings into this architectural embroidery. L'esprit de finesse. And this is how the building looks like from the top, from the air. And the elevations. Complex geometries. It's very well balanced. It is a work which takes some risks, but not excessively. So it is a balanced work between order and necessity. And here we see examples of, their tests. prior to, finalizing the building. So yes, there is freedom, but there is also, prior study and even rigor. That's why, that mathematician whose name, unfortunately, I do not remember or I do not know, was necessary. Maybe here we can talk about spontaneous order, which in the language of science refers to that kind of subtle order that nature has, which welcomes hazard, which welcomes what we call aleatory, manifestations. As opposed to the order of man, the order of nature is more complex, more subtle, more ambiguous, and welcomes accidents or even disorder. What about if we express ourselves oxymoronically? A disordered order or an ordered disorder. Maybe that is the spontaneous order of nature. And now, this is the last image of this presentation. You see the dialogue between nature and culture, between nature and man, between nature and the office of Cesar Pelli after he died. Thank you.